My husband brought back a woman from the border, claiming she was his long-lost white moonlight. What is your name? My surname is Sue, and my given name is Swessy. Her appearance was exactly the same, and even her voice was 90% similar, but I knew that the woman before me was not my husband's white moonlight, because as early as 2 years ago, Sue Swessy was killed by my own hands. My name is Yun Shuyue, the legitimate daughter of the Marquise's manor, and I married down to Zhangyan 5 years ago. Madam, the general has returned. My maid Quimiao ran in to report. I raised my hand to adjust the dangling hairpin in my bun, looking at my bright, beautiful face in the mirror, and said indifferently, "The general has been away for over a year. He must have suffered a lot. Go to the small kitchen yourself and keep an eye on things. Don't let there be any mistakes." Quimiao stood still, looking like she wanted to say something but stopped. What is wrong? Standing there like a wooden post. I turned my head to look at Quimiao. Quimiao pursed her lips. "Madam, I heard the servants in the front hall say that the general brought a woman back this time." Hearing this, I didn't feel much emotion. Keeping a straight face, I said, "The general is at the border protecting the country, so it is unavoidable that he gets lonely. It is normal to find someone considerate to serve him. Since he brought her back, just find a courtyard to settle her in." Quimiao's voice trembled unsteadily. "Madam, everyone in the manor is saying that the general has found Miss Sue, who went missing 2 years ago." Clang. The pearl hairpin in my hand fell to the ground with a crisp clatter. I frowned and asked, "Miss Sue, which Miss Sue?" "Miss Sue? Sue? Swessy." The corners of my mouth curled into a smile. I stood up and said to Quimiao, "I haven't seen Sister Sue for a long time. Come, let's go take a look." We arrived at the front hall. After over a year apart, Zhangyan's face was a bit darker, covered in traces of wind and sand. I stepped forward, gracefully, dipped a curtsy to Zhangyan, and said with a smile, "I've been hoping and praying, and finally, the general has returned safe and sound." It was as if I didn't see the woman beside Zhangyan at all, minding my own business and speaking only to Zhangyan. Zhangyan looked at Su Shwessy standing to the side, gave a light cough. "Shu Yu, this is Shwessy. Do you remember her?" "I remember. How could I not remember? Hearing before that you had gone missing, sister. I just assumed I wouldn't see you again. I didn't expect to actually see you again today." I stepped forward to take Su Shwessy's hand and continued. "Where have you been these past 2 years, sister? You really made Lord Su search hard for you." Su Shwessy was very warm toward me, holding my hand in her palm in return, her pair of almond eyes glistening like water. "Thank you for your concern, sister. I didn't go missing. That was all just people outside spreading nonsense." "Oh?" I raised a brow, looking at Su Shwessy's eyes, and asked, "I wonder how you met the general, sister. Was it a coincidence? Or—" Before Su Shwessy could speak, Zhangyan reached out and pulled Su Shwessy to his side, put his arm around her shoulders, and said to me, "Shu Yu, Shwessy will be living at our residence from now on. Clear out Luoxia Court. Shwessy is used to living there." "Yes, rest assured, General. I will arrange everything properly myself." There were only 2 masters in the residence, me and Zhangyan. There weren't many servants in the house, and seeing one more person added, no one took it to heart. After all, I was the mistress in charge. At dinner time, Zhangyan arrived late with Su Shwessy. As soon as she sat down, Su Shwessy started retching at the food on the table. I narrowed my eyes at Su Shwessy, raised an eyebrow, and asked, "What is wrong, sister? Is the food in the general's residence not to your liking?" Su Shwessy looked shy, buried her head in Zhangyan's embrace, and whispered, "Shwessy didn't mean to. The doctor said that Shwessy is already carrying the general's flesh and blood." Yun Shuyue didn't miss the expression on Zhangyan's face. The surprise that flashed across Zhangyan's face didn't look fake. Things seemed to have become more interesting. "Then congratulations, sister. The general's residence has no legitimate son. If this pregnancy of yours is a boy, The Jiang family's ancestors can rest in peace underground. General, don't you agree? Yan Shayue said with a faint smile. Jiang Yan gave a fake smile and said, "Only those born of the main wife are legitimate sons." The three people at the dinner table each had their own hidden thoughts. Yun Shuyue only ate a few bites before getting up and returning to her own courtyard. "Madam, would you like to wait a while for the general?" After washing up, I went straight to bed, leaning back against the large round bolster and tucking the stray hair at my temples behind my ear. I looked at Qimiao and said with a smile, "The general and Miss Su were childhood sweethearts. Now that he has finally found her, why would the general come to my place? All right, you go down first. Send 2 clever maids to Luoxia Court to serve them well. Don't let anything go wrong with the child in Miss Su's womb." Yes, in my past life everyone said I had good fortune, marrying a husband who was young, promising, and gentle as jade. But only when I died did I realize what a viper's heart was hidden beneath that gentle as jade mask. My newlywed bliss with Jiang Yan was nothing more than an act he put on for everyone to see. The one he held in his heart had always been Su Shuisi. The day I stumbled upon their affair was in late spring, and the rain was falling lingeringly. Jiang Yan was handling military affairs at the villa, overworking himself for days, so I stewed ginseng soup with my own hands and rushed over with my maid, braving the rain. Who knew that just as I reached the door of the study in the villa, I would hear unspeakable sounds coming from inside. "Brother Yan, hold me tighter." Su Shuesi's voice held a coquettish charm and a trace of urgency that was hard to detect. "When will you finally kill Yun Shuyue? I don't want to wait any longer." Immediately following was Jiang Yan's voice, gentle enough to drown someone, yet every word stabbed into my heart like an ice pick. "Swear, wait a little longer. Yun Shuyue is the legitimate daughter of the Marquise's manor, and her father holds military power. If something happens to her now, I am afraid it won't be easy to explain to the Marquise's manor. Don't worry, I've already made arrangements with the midwife. Brother Yan, I only blame my body for being so useless." Su Shuesi's voice took on a tearful tone. "The doctor said my constitution is weak, and I was born with a cold womb, so it will be very hard to conceive in this life. Once Yun Shuyue gives birth to the child, we will have a child." Silly girl. Jiang Yan's voice was full of tender pity. That piece of meat in her belly getting to be your child is a blessing for her and for that child. Then there was a sound of rustling clothes, mixed with Su Shuesi's soft, coquettish murmurs. I stood in the rain, frozen to the bone, and the bowl of ginseng soup in my hand crashed to the ground with a clang. The shattered porcelain shards flew at my ankles, drawing blood, but I couldn't feel any pain. I went into premature labor. The contractions lasted from early morning until late at night. I was soaked through with sweat from the pain, almost fainting away. It wasn't until the latter half of the night that the child's head finally emerged, but the midwife suddenly pressed down on my chest, her other hand tightly covering my mouth and nose. I struggled desperately, but because the labor had drained all my strength, I couldn't move at all. Let me go. Whatever Jiang Yan is paying you, I'll give you double." I used my last ounce of strength to say hoarsely. The midwife's face was devoid of expression, her eyes cold. "Madam, I am sorry. You go peacefully." Just then, the door was pushed open, and Jiang Yan walked in. He still carried the chill from outside on him, looking at me with calm eyes without a shred of pity. Su Shuesi followed behind him too, wearing a thick fox fur coat, with an eerie smile on the corner of her mouth. "Shuyu, don't blame me." Jiang Yan's voice was like winter ice. "Shuer cannot give birth, but my Jiang family cannot be without an heir. You can go in peace. Shuer and I will take good care of the child. Beasts. You are all beasts." I was trembling with rage, tears mixed with sweat sliding down. I looked at him, at Su Shuesi, and at the newly born child crying in swaddling clothes, my heart filled with endless hatred and despair. The midwife's hand pressed harder and harder, and I felt my life slipping away bit by bit. A second before my consciousness plunged completely into darkness, I heard Su Shuesi say to Zhang Yan, "Brother Yan, this is great. Now we have a child." Madam, wake up." Qimiao's voice pulled me back from the nightmare. Cold sweat slid down my temples, soaking the pillow. I snapped my eyes open. Before me was still the familiar agarwood canopy, but the smell of blood seemed to linger at the tip of my nose, and beside my ears were the faint cries of a baby and Zhang Yan's cold voice. That was a nightmare carved into my soul, the memory from my past life, right before I breathed my last. "Madam, did you have a nightmare again?" Qimiao's voice was filled with worry. She reached out to support me, but I subconsciously swatted her away. I clutched the brocade quilt, my knuckles turning white, my whole body trembling uncontrollably. It wasn't a nightmare. Those scenes were too real. So real that every time I closed my eyes, I could return to those hellish days. "Brother Yan, I don't want to go home. If you don't want to go back, just stay here at my place." Zhang Yan held Su Shuesi's hand in his palm, breathing warm air onto it as he said tenderly, "You've been frail since you were little. If you were to freeze, wouldn't my heart ache to death?" Hearing this, Su Shuesi's face flushed like the sunset, and the affection in the corners of her eyes could no longer be hidden. "What are you doing?" "My newlywed husband is holding another woman right now." Seeing that I had walked in on the two of them, Zhang Yan shielded Su Shuesi behind him, looking at me with a faint detachment in his eyes. "She is Shueseki, my sister." Su Shuesi poked her head out halfway, revealing a canine tooth. "Sister, please don't misunderstand. Brother Yan was just worried I'd catch a cold. That is all." I snorted coldly, staring fixedly at Su Shuesi, and said through gritted teeth, "I wasn't aware that the Zhang family actually had another legitimate daughter at home." "She isn't the Zhang family's legitimate daughter. Shuesi is Vice Minister Su's daughter. We grew up together, like brother and sister." When Zhang Yan said this, his eyes were full of loneliness. Me fingertips turned white from clenching, my fingernails almost digging into my palms. Yet I deliberately raised a gentle smile and stepped forward slowly. "Since you are close as brother and sister, it is only right for the general to care for her this way. It is just that Sister Shuesi's health is delicate. Standing in the cold wind for too long isn't proper after all. Why not return to the manor with me, so the servants can take good care of her?" A hint of surprise flashed in Zhang Yan's eyes. Perhaps he didn't expect me to be so reasonable. There was a bit of guilt hidden in the depths of his eyes as he looked at me, but that guilt was too shallow. Shallow as duckweed on the water surface broken with a single poke. Su Shuesi was even more stunned, immediately shrinking timidly behind Zhang Yan. That appearance, it was as if I had become some wicked mistress relying on my power to bully others. I pretended not to have seen her little action, only speaking softly. "If sister is shy, just stay and rest with peace of mind." Although the general's manor isn't as exquisite as the Su manor, it is quiet, perfectly suitable for sister to nurse her health. Zhang Yan pondered for a moment, but ultimately couldn't resist the expectation in Su Shuesi's eyes, and nodded in agreement. "Very well, then I will have to trouble you, madam." I smiled and agreed. As I turned around, the warmth in my eyes instantly cooled to ice. Me skirt hem swept over the bluestone ground, bringing out a fine rustling sound, exactly like the blurry whimpering in my ears when I bled to death in my previous life. In the previous life, Zhang Yan was also this smooth-talking, saying things about being like brother and sister. On the very night I settled Su Shuesi in, I had someone add something to spice things up in her decoction. The night was so thick it wouldn't dissolve. I stood in the shadows of the corridor, twirling a fallen leaf at my fingertips, listening to the suggestive sounds coming from the courtyard, the corners of my mouth curling into a cold arc. "Zhang Yan, Su Shuesi, in this life, it is your turn to die." Early the next morning, I took a group of maids to Su Shuesi's courtyard. When I pushed the door open and entered, Zhang Yan was coaxing Su Shuixi, who was on the bed without a stitch of clothing on, her face flushed red. Su Shuixi, wrapped in the quilt, was weeping and wailing, looking as if she had suffered a massive injustice, staring at Zhang Yan with red and swollen eyes. Husband, what is going on? I feigned shock, took a half step back, held onto the maid beside me, my voice carrying just the right amount of trembling. Jiang Yan turned his head and saw me, hurriedly pulled his collar together, and explained to me incoherently. Shu Yu, listen to my explanation. Last night, I walked into the wrong courtyard. Brother Yan! Su Shuixi looked at me with tearful eyes. Sister, don't blame Brother Yan. It was me. It was all my fault. As she spoke, Su Shuixi was about to crash her head against the edge of the bed, but was grabbed by Zhang Yan. I watched this clumsy act with a cold eye, feeling not a ripple in my heart. They were repeating their old tricks. Jiang Yan came before me to plead guilty. Jiang Yan knelt before me, his face full of remorse. Jiang Yan held my hand, his tone earnest. Shu Yue, I was wrong. I was just confused for a moment. I promise. I'll send Shuer away immediately and never see her again in this life. I only beg you to forgive me so the two of us can live a good life together, okay? Zhang Yan's palm was warm, carrying a familiar touch, but I only felt a wave of nausea. I pulled my hand back, remained silent for a long time, then slowly spoke, my voice carrying a trace of exhaustion. Husband, I trust you this once. It is just that Sister Shuixi is innocent after all. When you send her away, prepare enough travel money for her and let her live a good life. A flash of wild joy passed through Zhang Yan's eyes, and he hurriedly nodded. Thank you, madam. Thank you for forgiving me. I will go arrange it right now and never let her appear in front of you again to affect the relationship between the two of us. Su Shuixi was the person at the very tip of Zhang Yan's heart. Naturally, Zhang Yan couldn't bear to send her away. When the words Zhang Yan used to coax Su Shuixi reached my ears word for word, I wasn't even surprised. In the previous life, he was just like this, using circumstances beyond my control, and the stability of the Marquise's manner as a guise to coax Su Shuixi into willingly hiding in the separate courtyard, while secretly plotting to take my life during childbirth. Shuixi, you know my difficulties. The Marquise's manner has immense power. If I divorce her now, my career will be over. It is not that I am greedy for wealth and power. Your body has been weak since you were young, and I just couldn't bear to have you suffer along with me. Jiang Yan spoke these words with deep emotion and sincerity. Su Shuixi pounded Zhang Yan's chest, sobbing softly. Brother Yan, I've given my everything to you. You can't let me down. Zhang Yan pulled Su Shuixi into his arms, took out a handkerchief to gently wipe the tears from her face, and continued speaking. Don't worry, I've already thought of a way. Since ancient times, for a woman, childbirth is like stepping with one foot through the gates of hell. It is a narrow escape from death. As long as we get her pregnant, when it comes time for the delivery, we can have the midwife do something to her, and the Marquise's manor won't be able to say a thing. Then that child will be raised by you. Su Shuixi was coaxed into a beaming smile by this, and she obediently stepped onto the carriage heading to the villa. But she didn't know that this journey was actually the road to the Yellow Springs that I had already paved for her. After my rebirth, I had Kui Miao go back to the Marquise's manor to ask for a few loyal servants to stay by my side. Those few people had all followed my father to kill on the battlefield. Every one of them was skilled and agile. They took my orders, ambushed the spot where Su Shuixi's carriage had to pass, and tied her up without breaking a sweat. The ruined temple was gloomy and damp, with spiderwebs hanging all over the beams. Su Shuixi was thrown onto the ground, her hair bun messy and her skirt stained with mud and filth, yet she still put on the airs of an official's daughter, shrieking, "Do you know who I am?" Seeing the masked figure remained silent, Su Shuixi spoke again. I assume you kidnapped me for money. How about this? I'll write a letter, and you take it to the Jiang Manor, that general's manor. As long as you let me go, Zhangyan will give you whatever amount of money you want. I slowly walked out of the shadows, the moonlight spilling onto my face through the broken window. Su Shuixi's voice cut off abruptly. After she saw my face clearly, her pupils shrank and immediately flooded with monstrous spite. There wasn't a trace left of the delicate gentleness she put on for show. It is you, Yun Shuya. You vicious bitch. You couldn't stand me, so you used these dirty, underhanded tricks against me. Su Shuixi screamed curses, spouting filth too dirty to listen to, completely losing the dignity of a well-bred lady. I drew my dagger. A cold glint flashed, and her face instantly turned ghastly pale. I didn't do anything wrong. You are the one who is wrong. Su Shuixi cowered and backed away, her voice trembling, but she was still trying to act tough. I am just a woman. I only wanted to find a man who would cherish and love me. Brother Yan and I were childhood sweethearts. It is all because of you. If you hadn't occupied the position of the general's wife, why would Brother Yan and I have to resort to this? Innocent. In my previous life, Su Shuixi held the promise Zhang Yan gave her, watching me struggle to death in the delivery room, then turned around and took my child, enjoying everything that should have belonged to me. Such innocence is truly nauseating. I looked at Su Shuixi and said indifferently, yes, you and Zhang Yan are childhood sweethearts. But back when Zhang Yan went to your house to propose, it was your father who despised the Zhang family for being a broken-down household. When he was climbing step by step to the position of general with his military merits, you never thought Zhang Yan would look down on your Su family, did you? Su Shuixi froze for a moment, saying, yes, you are the legitimate daughter of the Marquise's manor. How noble. You married down into the Jiang family, but even if you have the doting love of your parents and brothers, you still can't get Brother Yan's heart. Brother Yan has never had you in his heart. Squelch. The dagger stabbed firmly into Su Shuixi's heart. Fresh blood gushed out, splattering on my face. The warm sensation made me feel inexplicably calm. Su Shuixi's eyes glared wide, filled with unwillingness and fear. What do I want with the heart of a man like that? Even if I leave the Zhang family, I still have the Marquise's manor backing me up, and my parents, brother, and sister-in-law will support me for the rest of my life. But you absolutely shouldn't have schemed against me. As I spoke, I drove the dagger a bit deeper into Su Shuixi's chest. I won't let you off even if I become a ghost. At death's door, Su Shuixi was still talking tough. I'll wait for you to become a ghost and come find me for revenge. Su Shuixi died. I saw with my own eyes as her corpse was buried in the clearing behind the ruined temple. The wind blew through the ruined temple, carrying the chill from the mountains. I looked up at the crescent moon hanging in the sky, a cold smile curling the corners of my mouth. Zhang Yan, I've gotten rid of Su Shuixi, and now it is your turn. What you owe me, and what you owe my child, I will take back bit by bit, principal and interest included. As soon as I returned to the Zhang Manor, I saw Wenner, the maid who specializes in grinding ink for Zhang Yan, running over stumblingly, her face full of panic. Madam, please go check on the general quickly. The gatekeeper said a beggar delivered a letter. After the general read it, he acted like he'd lost his mind, tearing up all the books on the shelves, and even smashed that emerald gourd he usually treasures the most. That letter was, naturally, written by me imitating Su Shuixi's handwriting. I raised my hand to adjust the cat's eye-dangling hairpin at my temple and spoke to Kumiao. Come with me to the study to have a look. When I pushed open the door to the study, the mess all over the floor stung my eyes. Rare books and unique copies were torn into jagged shreds, and the warm, translucent emerald gourd had already shattered into several pieces. Green jade shards were mixed among the book pages, looking exactly like some kind of silent lament. Zhang Yan stood with his back to the door, the hem of his brocade robe stained with ink, his shoulders heaving slightly. Hearing footsteps, Zhang Yan turned around, his eyes bloodshot. He strode over to me in a few steps, grabbed my shoulders with such force that he almost crushed my bones, and questioned me in a hoarse voice. Was it you? Did you say something to Shuesi? I frowned in pain but deliberately put on a bewildered look, pushing Zhangyan's hands away, my tone filled with confusion. What nonsense are you talking about, husband? Zhangyan pulled a letter from his chest and slammed it onto the table in front of me. Read it yourself. The letter paper was the plain-colored Shuetao notepaper Shuesi always used, and the handwriting on it was graceful and elegant. The letter read, Brother Yan, Shuesi no longer wishes to be caught between you and Sister Shuyo, acting as that detestable third party. Shuesi is leaving, though I bear 1,000 regrets. We shall be separated by mountains and rivers from now on, never to meet again in this life or the next. Shuesi's final words. I looked up at Zhangyan, my tone calm. Didn't you plan to send Sister Shuesi away earlier, husband? Now that she is left on her own, why are you so angry? Could it be that you never intended to send her away? These words were like a needle, ruthlessly piercing through Zhangyan's taut nerves. Zhangyan sat on the floor, as if all his strength had been drained away. Seeing him looking so despondent, I didn't feel a shred of pity for him in my heart. I didn't say another word, turning around and taking Qimiao with me as I left the study. Since then, Zhangyan truly acted as if he had lost his soul, never stepping foot in my courtyard again. A month later, Zhangyan petitioned His Majesty to go guard the border. I heard he was actually valiant and skilled in battle at the border, earning merit after merit. The next time I saw Zhangyan, he had won a great victory and was returning to the capital with his troops. Returning with him was a woman who looked exactly like Su Shuesi. The next day, Su Shuesi came to my courtyard before it was even light out. Su Shuesi was wearing a moon-white dress embroidered with sprays of flowering crabapple, but her hand was stroking her flat belly, the smugness in her eyes unable to be hidden, almost spilling over. Greetings, madam. Su Shuesi curtsied and said to me, The general pities me for being pregnant, and advised me to sleep a bit longer, saying there was no need to rush to pay respects to you, madam. But I thought, Madam is the mistress of the house. How could I dare rely on his favor to act spoiled and make you unhappy? I lifted my teacup, took a sip, looked at Su Shuesi, and asked her with a smile. What do I have to be unhappy about? It is your good fortune that the general dotes on you. Su Shuesi seemed to miss the distance in my words, her voice carrying a hint of provocation. Madam has not borne any children since marrying into the general's manor. I understand a woman's nature. What woman isn't jealous? Don't you think that stands to reason, madam? Seeing her look so full of herself, when really she was just a clown, I couldn't help but let out a low laugh. I turned and walked toward the inner room, leaving her standing there. Qimiao's voice came from behind. Concubine Su, you must be joking. The madam is magnanimous. The general left for the frontier barely 2 months after marrying the madam. If the madam really were pregnant, I am afraid the general would be the one worrying. So, where does this talk of jealousy come from? Su Shuesi went back to Luoxia courtyard in a huff. Qimiao walked in, curled her lips, and said, Madam, this concubine Su is way too arrogant. I smiled and shook my head, saying, No need to stoop to her level. The higher she jumps, the harder she'll fall. Who knew that come nightfall, there was a commotion from Luoxia court, saying concubine Su was feeling unwell, and had called a doctor to take a look. I sat by the window, holding scissors to trim the lilies on the table. The dew on the petals trembled slightly, reflecting the candlelight. Before long, the door was pushed open and Zhangyan stormed in, seething with rage. As soon as he opened his mouth, it was a sarcastic accusation. Yun Shuye, you come from a marquise's manor, and are now the noble general's lady. Shuesi is just a weak woman who never thought of competing with you for anything. Why can't you tolerate the child in her womb? I didn't even lift my eyelids, focusing entirely on trimming the flower branches. Seeing this, Zhangyan's fury burned even hotter, and he clapped his hands. Immediately, a maidservant was shoved inside by a page boy. "This maid is from your courtyard, right?" Zhang Yan pointed at Xinger, his tone as cold as winter ice. I put down the scissors, raised my eyes to look at Xinger, and asked, "What is this about?" Xinger buried her head extremely low, her voice as faint as a mosquito. This slave was just following Madam's orders." "What did I ask you to do?" Zhang Yan cut in, his tone full of mockery. "You had Xinger put safflower in Xuesi's fetal preservation medicine. If Xuesi hadn't felt unwell and skipped that bowl of medicine, would you have gotten your wish and killed the child in her womb?" I stood up, looked straight into Zhang Yan's eyes, and said unhurriedly, "General, you come bearing accusations, but I fear you are questioning the wrong person. Xinger is indeed someone from my courtyard. It is also my fault for not making it clear to concubine Su. This singer was sent over by the house of Count Zhongyang half a month ago." Zhang Yan's expression changed. The madam of the house of Count Zhongyang is Zhang Yan's aunt. Zhang Yan's pupils constricted, and he said nothing. I continued, "If the general wishes to investigate this matter, why don't I send someone to invite aunt over? The general can ask her face to face why she sent such a considerate maid to my side, and why she would have her commit such a vicious act." Zhang Yan's face turned green, then white. Finally, with a cold snort, he flicked his sleeves and stormed off. The days passed peacefully, like this for half a year. Su Xuesi has stayed behind closed doors in Luoxia Court ever since that safflower incident. I continued to read and practice calligraphy every day, as if the turmoil in the manor had never happened. One afternoon, Qimiao ran in hurriedly and said, "Madam, bad news. Word has come from Luoxia Court that Concubine Su has gone into premature labor." My hand holding the scroll paused for a moment, and I said indifferently, "Have the servants keep a close watch and report any developments immediately." Su Xuesi was in pain for a whole day and night. It wasn't until early the next morning that news came from Luoxia Court. Su Xuesi gave birth to a daughter, but the child was born with a deformity. Both palms were fused fingers, smooth and bare without a single digit. After Zhang Yan heard the news, he immediately ordered a lockdown on the matter. Aside from the maids and midwives serving in Luoxia Court, no one else in the manor knew. A few days later, rumors began to spread within the manor, saying that I couldn't tolerate children born of concubines and that I sabotaged things behind the scenes, causing concubine Su to go into premature labor. The rumors intensified. In the evening, Zhang Yan barged into my room again. "Yun Shuyue, are you the one playing tricks behind my back?" I sat at the table, opened a brocade box, took out a stack of account books, and handed them to Zhang Yan. "General, take a look at this first." Zhang Yan picked up the account book suspiciously, and after flipping through a few pages, his expression grew increasingly grave. It was the ledger from the medicine shop, recording that half a month ago, Hongyu had purchased labor-inducing herbs, complete with the shop assistant's signature and mark. And Hongyu was bought by Jiang Yan from the Su family, originally the personal maid serving Su Xuesi. This is the testimony from the pharmacy clerk. The one who bought the labor-inducing herbs was concubine Su's personal maid. As for why she did it, General, you might as well ask concubine Su yourself. Zhang Yan's hand holding the ledger trembled slightly, and he immediately had someone bring Su Xuesi and Hongyu over. Faced with ironclad evidence, Su Xuesi turned deathly pale but denied it to the death, crying out to Zhang Yan that she was framed. But Hongyu admitted it, and pointing at Su Xuesi, she said to Zhang Yan, "General, she isn't my young lady, she is a fake." Zhang Yan froze on the spot, his face livid, remaining silent and not saying a word. "General, my lady's feelings for you are true. You must uphold justice for her. She is a fake. A fake. She is usurping the nest, General." In the end, Zhang Yan had Hongyu dragged out and beaten to death, while Su Xuesi was confined. The bronze bells on the eaves tinkled faintly in the night wind. I lay on the bed, tightly gripping a dagger in my hand. I have been waiting for this night, waiting for Zhangyan. For a long time, the watchman's drum struck past the third watch, when suddenly a slight noise came from the window lattice. I held my breath, and a red figure flipped in through the window like a ghost. It wasn't black night gear, but the gold-woven red brocade he usually wore. Tow him. Killing me was as easy as crushing an ant. He didn't even bother with a disguise. The instant the sword edge cut through the air, I abruptly rolled over and leaped up, my dagger slashing across his arm. With a shick, fresh blood dripped onto the carpet. Candlelight flared up within the room, making it as bright as day. The ruthlessness on Jiangyan's face instantly froze, replaced by astonishment. He clutched his bleeding arm, pointed the tip of his sword at me, and asked, "You know martial arts?" I looked down at the beads of blood winding down the dagger, and suddenly laughed out loud. Me laughter echoed in the room, laced with mockery. My father and brother are both generals guarding the border. I grew up surrounded by spears and swords. What is so strange about me knowing martial arts? Does General Zhang think that women can only paint their eyebrows and be lambs waiting to be slaughtered? Jiangyan snorted coldly, his gaze roaming over my face, as if he wanted to see right through me from the inside out. "Are you really Yun Shuyue?" I raised my eyebrows and wiped the bloodstains off the dagger with my cuff, my tone carrying a hint of mockery. "What? Shinger told you long ago that concubine SU was a fake imposter. But you didn't believe it. Now that you've been hurt by me, you are actually doubting my identity as the legitimate mistress." Jiangyan walked slowly toward me, circled around me once, his breath brushing past my ear. I remember the old Yun Shuyue was gentle and submissive, her eyes and heart filled only with serving her husband and raising children. How come shortly after marriage, you seem like a completely different person? People always change. I stopped smiling and gripped the dagger tight, the hilt digging painfully into my palm. But some things won't change, like the human heart. Don't you agree, General? Jiangyan stopped in front of me, his gaze sharp. "Yun Shuyue, it is not that you've changed, it is that you knew the ending of the story. So from the very beginning, you were plotting revenge, right?" Jiangyan was reborn too. I knew it from the moment he named the child he bore for Su Shuesi Zhangshan. Because this is the name of the child I gave birth to in my previous life. I raised my dagger and stabbed fiercely at his heart. Jiangyan obviously hadn't expected me to suddenly attack, and hurriedly raised his sword to block. The sharp clash of swords was exceptionally piercing in the night. My moves were ruthless, every strike aiming straight for a vital spot. Jiangyan could handle it at first, but gradually, his movements slowed, cold sweat beaded on his forehead, and his breathing grew ragged. I sneered inwardly. What he didn't know was that I had long since swapped the ingredients in the tonic he took every day. Angelica nourishes the blood. Duhuo dispels wind seemingly harmless, but taken long-term, they are enough to drain one's vitality and cause internal power to fade day by day. Seizing the moment he paused for breath, I sidestepped to avoid his blade, drove the dagger under his ribs, and stabbed straight into his heart. Fresh blood instantly gushed out, staining my sleeve red. Jiangyan stared at me in disbelief, his lips quivering as if he wanted to speak, but he only spat out mouthfuls of bloody froth. "This dagger was specially prepared for you and Su Shuesi." I leaned close to Jiangyan's ear and said, "Su Shuesi was also pierced through the heart bit by bit with this dagger. Don't stare at me like that. As the mistress of the general's manor, taking care of your daily needs is my duty. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for cherishing your life too much and relying on tonics every day that gave me the chance." Jiangyan's body slowly slumped down, his eyes wide open, filled with unwillingness and venom. Jiangyan died. I stood right there looking at his corpse, suddenly feeling drained of strength, yet also feeling an unprecedented sense of relief. The hatred from my past life finally came to an end tonight. Su Shuesi, no. She should be called Wan Yang. She was redeemed from the brothel by Zhang Yan, and following his orders, she impersonated Su Shuesi to return to the capital with him. I sent Wan Yang beyond the pass, along with her newborn child, for the rest of her life. She will never take a single step inside the border. I found a healthy baby girl in Zhongyan and claimed she was born to concubine Su. But concubine Su remained bedridden after the delivery and passed away not long after. As for Zhang Yan, he was assassinated by enemy spies during the night, and unfortunately died. I named the baby girl Zhang Jin, drawing from the meaning of a land of splendor and a family legacy of loyalty and bravery. For the next 16 years, I raised Zhang Jin with the utmost care, teaching her to read and write, as well as horse riding and archery. She was incredibly smart and sharp, not only mastering excellent martial arts, but also possessing extraordinary courage and bearing, not losing out to my father and brothers in the slightest. When Zhang Jin was 16, an emergency struck the border, and enemy invaders attacked. I petitioned His Majesty, requesting that Zhang Jin inherit the title of the general's manor and lead the troops out to war. The entire court was in an uproar. Civil and military officials alike opposed it, arguing that a woman leading troops went against ancestral laws. But they forgot that the people of the Marquis Manor have always put the country first. His Majesty, mindful of the Marquis Manor's generations of loyalty, finally granted my petition. On the day of departure, when the sky was just barely light, I personally helped Zhang Jin into her armor. The dark iron armor was cold and hard, accentuating her upright figure, while her features radiated an overwhelming heroic spirit. Zhang Jin knelt before me and kowtowed heavily. "Mother, your daughter will definitely not fail your teachings." I helped her up, tears in my eyes. "Go, guard this vast land, and guard our home." Zhang Jin swung onto the horse, leading the vast army as they set out in a mighty procession. The sound of hooves shattered the morning mist, kicking up dust that filled the sky. I stood on the city tower, watching her figure gradually fade into the distance. Half a year later, news of victory arrived. Zhang Jin led the army to crush the enemy invaders, reclaimed lost territory, and returned to the court in triumph. His Majesty was overjoyed, granting Jing Jing the title of Lady General Defender of the State and bestowing countless rewards. Suddenly, the general's manor became illustrious, and no one failed to admire this young and promising female general. And I, Yun Shuyue, ended the heartless man's life with my own hands. With the courage to risk it all, I not only avenged myself, but also raised a pillar of the nation. The traces of Zhang Yan have long been completely wiped from the general's manor by me. Now in the general's manor, only Zhang Jin and I remain to depend on each other. We are each other's most solid support. Outside the window, the sunshine is just right, spilling in through the carved lattice and falling on the floor, warm and cozy. I know that the days ahead will get better and better. The painful past of my previous life will eventually vanish, like passing smoke, while our future is bound to be splendid.